Quick question. What is woke? No, seriously. Take a second and think to yourself what you think being woke in video games means. Now, I'm willing to bet that the majority of you didn't come up with a concrete answer for that. And that's by design. See, it all started in the 18th century when a man by the name of Sir Wokington III decided to declare... I'm joking, that's not what actually... This is not what actually happened. In all seriousness, wokeness is something that's incredibly poorly defined among normal people, and the people who use it to deride the woke left seem to always have a very telling definition of it, that they just won't tell you. Why is that? Looking into it online, you come up with definitions that make you wonder, why is this such a bad thing? Until you go deeper and you start seeing more opinionated pieces. So what I'm here to do is to provide a definition of woke, an agreed upon definition of woke at least, and a little bit of its history and how it's evolved and changed over the years. And by the end of this, I hope you have a better understanding of what it means when someone says, this game has gone woke, or go woke, go broke. Woke is not a new term by any stretch of the meaning. It's used as a slang term started among African Americans throughout the Civil Rights era, dating back to even the 1930s. The term stay woke meant to stay alert to racial injustice, and to keep an eye out for those who might discriminate against you, a marginalized group. The first recorded mention of the term is attributed to the late African American singer Huddie Ledbetter, aka Lead Belly, in his 1938 recording of the song Scottsboro Boys. Somewhat ironically, the woke among you might already know about the Scottsboro Boys and their trials, but to summarize it very shortly, they were 9 African American boys falsely accused of sexually assaulting 2 white women in 1931. The song goes on to quote,
"Good, I met him, and he showed me the Scottsboro Boys, and I shake hands with him, so I made this little song about down there. So I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along through that, but stay woke, keep their eyes open."
After the 2010s hit, woke, at least in the mainstream sense, came to mean something more, to include being aware about issues, meaning many other marginalized communities face, such as queer people and women. Although depending on who you ask, being woke to their injustices has been included for a very long time. But wait, you might be asking, this all sounds really important and empowering for marginalized people. Surely people wouldn't take this term and use it to deride and stigmatize an already vulnerable group of people. Wrong! If you guess, they stole the term and used it against those exact same communities. Come to the front to claim your prize. I know it doesn't really make sense to say a word is gentrified, but I can't really think of a better way to describe it honestly. Somewhere in 2016, right-wingers slowly adopted the word and weaponized it against the left. This gained traction until the early 2020s, where a sort of pendulum swung, so to speak. Suddenly, to be woke was bad. A culture war was formed around this very topic. Okay, well that's cool and all, but what the hell does that have to do with gaming? Well, to answer that question, we need to talk about parallel universes. See, bigots and the grifters who prey on them live in an alternate universe where minorities and queer people don't exist, so their inclusion in video games strikes them as a personal attack on their entire worldview. Mainstream games for so long catered to the straight white male demographic as the default. Pre-2010s, a character creator with more than a few traditionally black hairstyles was almost unheard of, let alone queer characters. This bled into the culture created around gaming, leading to a fan base that fostered toxicity among themselves. Hell, one of the biggest gaming memes is the fact that most of the people today wouldn't last in a Modern Warfare 2 lobby, which when presented with stuff like this,
Why the fuck would God make Asians and black men? They're fucking colored. Life is not a fucking brand. What the hell is with your voice?
It's not really the flex I would go for, but you know, go off. But as gaming became more and more mainstream, the gaming landscape and the culture had to evolve past its roots. When the quote-unquote woke mafia started to intrude on this gamer safe space is when gamers started fighting back against the woke agenda of, hold on, let me check my notes, being included and represented in the games they play? Am I reading that right? This counter movement culminated in the term go woke, go broke, which came from the idea that including strong women, LGBTQ plus elements, or important or main non-white characters would lead to your game being bad and cause it to underperform. But this idea that having woke things in video games being something out of the ordinary is already pretty false. Since the very humble beginning of video games, woke representation has existed. Jet Set Radio, Parappa the Rapper, and many others clearly draw inspiration from or include African Americans in their culture. Some of the first RPGs, such as Fable, Earthbound, and Chrono Trigger, famously include queer representation, with one of the huge standouts being Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door, which included a trans woman all the way back in 2004, although it was localized to not mention it on its original release. But the shift in the way we view what is and isn't woke is no better illustrated than with the release of Hades 2. The original Hades is, by all intents and purposes, a woke video game. The main character is canonically bisexual. Several of the gods draw inspiration from different non-white races, and not to mention that strong women have their own personal agency. So by the logic of go woke, go broke, we should see it bomb, right? Well, it is one of the most loved games of all time, winning several awards that year, including Game of the Year, and is one of the most successful indie titles in years. Not to say that it didn't have its detractors at the time, but that just seems weird, right? I mean, it was woke. Hades 2 is no different. It's just as woke as the first one. So you have to ask yourself, why this sudden change in attitude? Why is one thing being woke okay, but another thing isn't? Culturally, video games have always been a medium for expression. Too often, a lot of people choose not to recognize gaming for the art form it is and can be. Expression comes in many different forms and from many different people. This is shown in the quote-unquote woke elements that in some way or form have always been there, because the people these elements resonate with have always been there. The gaming community started around outcasts, those who enjoy something that used to be incredibly nerdy like video games. And this very much includes and resonates with minorities and queer people. They have been a part of the gaming community since the very beginning, even creating some of the games you love. The only thing that has really changed is visibility. As we come into the year 2024, the marginalized people who are already in these spaces are allowed to have a voice and be seen. And I think that scares those people who believe things should never change, and those who want their spaces to exclude those people. So honestly, if you really take one thing from this rambling session, let it be that you should never be afraid or ashamed of being woke. You should reclaim it. Own it.